The galaxy had never experienced anything like this. Across countless star systems, millions of lives were abruptly turned upside down as a deadly virus began to spread, without warning or mercy. It moved faster than any starship, infecting everything in its path. Whole planets fell silent as people who had once lived vibrant, busy lives now lay still, their bodies unable to fight off the disease. The virus was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It didn't care who you were, where you came from, or how powerful you were. It took you just the same. No cure, no remedy, nothing could stop it. Desperation quickly turned to panic, and in every corner of the galaxy, people started to wonder if the end was near. On the planet of Vornus, the virus arrived without warning. It was a quiet day at first. Markets were bustling. Children were laughing, and the citizens went about their daily routines. But then, just hours after the first few cases were reported, things took a turn for the worse. The virus spread rapidly. People began to show symptoms within hours: fever, exhaustion, and pain so intense it felt like their very bones were being crushed. By the next day, the hospitals were overwhelmed, filled with the sick and dying. The streets, once lively and filled with joy, became eerily quiet. The virus did not care who it claimed, rich or poor, old or young. It wiped them all out equally. In the capital city, the authorities tried to control the situation. They shut down the public spaces, closed off transport, and sent the military to patrol the streets, but it was too late. No matter what precautions were taken, the virus spread faster than any effort to contain it. Panic swept through the population. People, terrified for their lives, crowded into ships, hoping to escape the planet. But the virus had already taken hold of those ships too. It didn't matter if they were on land or in space. The virus spread, infecting everything in its path. A few days after the outbreak began, the first signs of the true horror of the virus appeared. It didn't just kill, it transformed. Infected individuals, before they succumbed to death, began to exhibit strange symptoms. Their skin became pale and their eyes took on a glassy, lifeless sheen. They no longer seemed human. They wandered the streets, aimlessly, their movements jerky and unnatural. It wasn't long before those who had been infected started to behave violently. They attacked anyone who came near, infected or not, their bodies twisted with a strange, uncontrollable rage. People began to flee their homes, but even in hiding, there was no escape. Across the galaxy, similar stories unfolded. Every planet, every space station, every colony was hit. At first, the different factions, be they human or alien, thought they could control the situation. They sent out their best doctors, their most advanced technology, but nothing seemed to help. The virus was too cunning. It didn't respond to traditional medicine. No scans, no diagnostics, no treatments worked. Soon, the scientific community realized they were facing something much worse than a natural disease. The virus had been engineered, designed to be unstoppable. It spread through the air, through water, through touch. Nothing was safe. In the vast, isolated world of Eryx, an outpost at the edge of the galaxy, the virus came silently. The population was small, mostly military personnel and scientists. But when the virus arrived, it spread as quickly as it had on Vornus. People died in the streets, their bodies piling up as the disease took hold. The survivors tried to communicate with the rest of the galaxy, but their messages never reached anyone. Ships that tried to come for help were destroyed. The virus had already claimed the planet, leaving nothing behind but an eerie, uninhabited wasteland. Within weeks, whole star systems were collapsing. The major spaceports and trade routes became nothing more than graveyards, abandoned by those who had once worked and thrived there. The surviving ships that fled the dying planets were often infected too. They went dark, their transmissions fading out, lost to the vastness of space. The galaxy was falling apart, and nobody knew how to stop it. On a warship called the Eagle's Strike, Captain Sarah Holden watched the screens in horror. She had been part of the military for years, and in all her experience, she had never seen anything like this. The Eagle's strike had been dispatched to a remote sector, away from the major population centers, to help quarantine a planet that had been hit by the virus. But it was already too late. As they approached the planet's atmosphere, the communications had gone silent. All that remained was the steady, unnerving hum of their engines as the crew waited for any word. In her private quarters, Captain Holden stared at the planet below, her mind racing. She had been briefed on the virus's effects, its symptoms, how it spread, and its horrifying consequences, but nothing could prepare her for what she was about to see. As the ship neared the surface, she ordered a shuttle to be launched, carrying medical personnel and soldiers to assess the situation. But minutes after the shuttle left, disaster struck. The shuttle, despite all its high-tech equipment, lost contact with the Eagle's strike. The captain's heart raced. She had to make a decision. Did they risk sending another shuttle? Or did they cut their losses and leave, knowing that they could be infected too? The time for indecision had passed. She ordered the ship to land. They had to gather intel, even if it meant putting everyone at risk. She had no idea what awaited them on the surface, but she knew one thing for sure. The virus had to be stopped. As the crew disembarked, they found the planet eerily quiet. No signs of life, no movement, just an overwhelming sense of dread. The capital city, once bustling with activity, was now abandoned. Stores were left open, doors ajar, and vehicles still parked in their spots. The air was heavy with the silence of death. As they moved through the streets, they came across the first of the infected, people whose bodies had been twisted and destroyed by the virus. Some still stumbled around, while others lay in the streets, motionless. It was clear that the virus didn't just kill. It twisted life itself into something grotesque. Despite their training, the soldiers couldn't hold back their horror. They had seen war, battle, and chaos, but nothing had prepared them for this. The virus was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. There were no weapons that could stop it, no armor that could protect them. As they advanced, they encountered more infected people, and every confrontation ended in violence. The crew of the Eagle's strike had no choice but to fight back, but it seemed pointless. For every infected person they took down, 10 more appeared. It was clear now. The virus wasn't just a biological weapon. It was an extinction event. The galaxy was being wiped out, one world at a time, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. In the midst of this chaos, Captain Holden had a thought that gnawed at her. Was there a way to stop this? Had the virus been unleashed by someone, or was it an accident? Who was behind it, and what did they want? She didn't have answers, but one thing was certain. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. As she stood on the planet's surface, watching the last of her crew fight to survive, she realized something important. The galaxy may have been ravaged by the virus, but humanity was not going to give up. They would find a way to fight back, even if the odds were against them. The first battle was lost, but the war was far from over. For now, survival was the only goal. The fate of the galaxy depended on it. This story is designed to captivate the audience with suspense and tension, while keeping the language simple and easy to understand. It sets the stage for the next part of the journey and raises the stakes for what's to come. The crisis was growing worse, and across the galaxy, hope was dwindling. But amidst the despair, a small glimmer of hope began to emerge, something that just might hold the key to saving humanity from the virus that had ravaged their worlds. On the remote planet of Ilara, an ancient artifact was discovered, hidden deep within an underground facility that had been abandoned for centuries. According to ancient texts, this artifact was rumored to possess incredible power, something that could stop the virus. The discovery of this artifact quickly made its way to the military and scientific leaders who had been desperately searching for a solution. There was only one problem. No one knew where the artifact was or how to retrieve it. As the news spread, Leaders from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency council meeting. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of collapse, and if the artifact held any hope for salvation, it was humanity's last chance. But the planet Ilara wasn't easily accessible. It was located in a dangerous sector of space, known for its hostile terrain, hidden traps, and deadly creatures. Any attempt to retrieve the artifact would be risky, and the journey was fraught with peril. But even with these dangers looming, the leaders knew they had no choice. The virus was relentless, and the galaxy's population was shrinking by the hour. A team was quickly assembled to find the artifact and bring it back. This team wasn't made up of ordinary soldiers or explorers. They were the best of the best, specialized in combat, survival, and problem-solving. Captain Sarah Holden, having survived the early stages of the virus outbreak on the planet Vornis, was once again called into action. With her experience and leadership, she was entrusted with leading this dangerous mission. Alongside her were a small group of experts, a scientist named Dr. Marcus Levine, an engineer named Lyra, and a soldier named Jackson who had seen the worst of the virus's impact. They all knew the stakes were high. If they failed, the virus would continue to spread, and they would be the last hope for billions of people across the galaxy. The journey to Ilara was as difficult as anyone had expected. The team's ship, the Starfire, cruised through space, dodging asteroid fields and navigating hostile areas. The sector surrounding Ilara was notorious for its dangerous space pirates, mercenaries who had taken advantage of the chaos caused by the virus. The crew had to be extra cautious. At one point, their ship was nearly ambushed by a group of mercenaries who had set up a trap in the depths of space. The battle was fierce, but the Starfire managed to fight them off. Jackson, the soldier, was crucial in taking out their attackers, while Lyra worked tirelessly to repair the ship's damaged systems. As they neared the planet's atmosphere, the team knew they were entering the heart of danger. Ilara was a cold, desolate world. The landscape was barren, covered in rocky plains and sharp mountains. The underground facility was located beneath a massive canyon, surrounded by treacherous cliffs and vast stretches of nothingness. The journey to reach the facility would be long and exhausting, but they had no time to waste. The virus continued to spread, and every minute counted. When they finally landed, the team's hearts sank as they looked out at the desolate landscape before them. It wasn't just the barren surroundings that were unnerving. It was the silence. There was no sound, no movement. The planet seemed abandoned, as if it had been forgotten by time. The only signs of life were the occasional flicker of lights from the underground facility, and even those seemed faint, as if barely alive. The team set out immediately, making their way toward the entrance of the facility. But the journey wasn't easy. They had to cross the canyon, which was a perilous task. The cliff walls were steep and jagged, and the wind howled, threatening to knock them off their path. Despite the challenges, the team pushed forward, knowing that every step brought them closer to the artifact and potentially the cure for the galaxy's suffering. As they neared the facility's entrance, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath them shook violently, and a series of loud mechanical noises echoed from below. It wasn't an earthquake. It was a defense mechanism, one designed to protect the facility from intruders. The team barely had time to react before a series of armed drones emerged from the ground, targeting them with deadly force. Captain Holden immediately ordered the team to take cover as the drones began firing. The firefight was intense, and the team had to rely on all their training and resources to survive. Jackson, with his expert combat skills, took down several drones, while Lyra used her engineering knowledge to hack into the facility's systems and disable the drone's targeting mechanisms. Dr. Levine, though not a fighter, helped by using his scientific knowledge to find weak points in the drone's armor, allowing the others to disable them more effectively. After what felt like an eternity, the team managed to destroy the last of the drones, but their victory was short-lived. The facility's entrance had been sealed, and the only way in was through a hidden access point that was deep inside the facility. The team was exhausted, their bodies sore from the battle, but they knew they had no choice but to press on. The virus was still out there, and they couldn't afford to waste any more time. Inside the facility, the team discovered what they had been searching for, a massive ancient chamber that housed the artifact. But it wasn't as simple as just retrieving it. The artifact was surrounded by a complex security system that would take all of Lyra's skills to disable. As she worked tirelessly to bypass the security measures, Captain Holden kept watch, aware that they were not alone. They could feel it. Something was watching them. Something ancient. Something that had been waiting for centuries. Just as Lyra finally managed to disable the security system, a loud, eerie noise echoed through the chamber. The walls trembled, and the team turned to face what they had feared. A massive, hulking figure emerged from the shadows. It was an ancient guardian, a mechanical warrior designed to protect the artifact at all costs. The guardian's eyes glowed red as it stepped forward, ready to attack. The team braced themselves for a battle unlike any they had ever fought. The guardian was huge, its metallic frame seemingly indestructible. Its movements were slow but deliberate, and every step it took sent a shockwave through the ground. The team fired everything they had, but their weapons had little effect on its thick armor. It seemed like nothing could stop it. As the battle raged on, Lyra realized the key to defeating the guardian wasn't in brute force. It was in the artifact itself. She quickly accessed the facility's main control panel, using the ancient technology to send a powerful signal to the Guardian. The signal overwhelmed the Guardian's systems, shutting it down completely. Exhausted but victorious, the team finally stood before the artifact. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, an orb of glowing energy that pulsed with incredible power. It was the key to saving the galaxy. And now it was in their hands. But even as they celebrated their victory, they knew their mission wasn't over. They still had to figure out how to use the artifact to cure the virus and stop the galaxy from falling apart. As they left the facility and made their way back to the Starfire, the team felt a sense of hope for the first time in weeks. The artifact was their last chance, and they were about to put everything on the line to use it. The future of the galaxy depended on them, and they would stop at nothing to save it. The journey back to the Starfire was tense. The team had narrowly escaped the ancient guardian, and now they were carrying with them the most precious object in the galaxy, the artifact that could possibly save them all. As they made their way back to the ship, the weight of their mission settled heavily on their shoulders. They had successfully retrieved the artifact, but now came the hardest part, figuring out how to use it to stop the virus that had ravaged the galaxy. Captain Sarah Holden paced the command deck of the Starfire, her mind racing with the possibilities. The artifact was unlike anything they had ever seen, an orb of glowing energy, pulsing with a strange power. The ancient texts had spoken of its power to cure diseases, but they had no idea how it worked. Dr. Marcus Levine, the scientist on the team, had studied it closely but was still unable to determine how to activate its power. "What are we missing?" Sarah muttered to herself, staring at the artifact. It was a small, unassuming object, but its energy was undeniable. It had to be the key to saving everyone, but without understanding how it worked, they were at a loss. Dr. Levine stood beside her, examining the orb. "There's no doubt it has incredible potential," he said, his voice filled with frustration. "But there's no manual, no instructions. The ancient texts only described its properties in vague terms. It's almost as if the knowledge of how to use it was intentionally hidden." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "So we're supposed to just guess?" "I'm afraid so," Dr. Levine replied. "But we do have one advantage. The artifact was created by a civilization that was far more advanced than ours. If we can figure out how to tap into its power, it could be the cure we need." Lyra, the ship's engineer, joined the conversation, her brow furrowed. "We've tried scanning it, analyzing it, and even testing it with various energy sources, but nothing's worked so far. It's as if the artifact only responds to something specific, a key we haven't found yet. Jackson, the soldier, stood at the back of the room, his arms crossed. He had been quiet for most of the journey, but now he spoke up. What if the key isn't something we can find with technology or science? What if it's something more? The group turned to him. Jackson's face was hard, his eyes determined. The virus is unlike anything we've ever seen, right? So maybe the cure isn't something we can just analyze with machines. Maybe it's something more instinctual, something the artifact recognizes only in the people who carry it. It was a strange thought, but Sarah felt a flicker of hope. You're saying the artifact reacts to us, to the people who carry it? It's just a theory, Jackson replied. But we've been fighting this virus with everything we have. Maybe the key to using the artifact is to stop thinking like scientists and start thinking like survivors. Dr. Levine looked thoughtful for a moment, but then shook his head. That might be a bit of a stretch, but honestly, at this point, I'm willing to try anything. After a moment of silence, Sarah made a decision. All right, we'll give it a shot. We'll try using the artifact ourselves and see if it reacts. It might not work, but it's all we have. Lyra, still uncertain, nodded. It's a long shot, but we can't afford to waste any more time. The virus is spreading faster than we can track it. We have to act now. The team gathered around the artifact, each of them thinking about the lives they were fighting for. They were the last hope for the galaxy, and they had come too far to fail now. Captain Holden carefully picked up the orb, feeling its strange, almost magnetic pull against her skin. It hummed softly, as if alive, responding to her touch. With a deep breath, she held it out in front of her. Here goes nothing, she said, her voice steady but laced with tension. The team watched, their eyes filled with hope and fear in equal measure. For a moment, nothing happened. The orb remained still, pulsing faintly in Sarah's hand, and the room was filled with the sound of soft breathing. Then, as Sarah focused on the artifact, something shifted. A low, resonating hum filled the room, growing louder and more intense. The artifact began to glow brighter, its light pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. Suddenly, Sarah felt a surge of warmth flood through her body. It was as though the artifact was reaching deep inside her, searching for something. The light grew blinding, and for a moment, she thought she might pass out. But then, just as suddenly, the light faded, and the hum stopped. Sarah stood frozen, feeling both exhilarated and exhausted. Did it work? Lyra asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sarah didn't answer at first. She felt a strange energy inside her, like a connection to something far beyond her understanding. Her body felt lighter, more alive. The virus was still out there, still threatening everything she held dear, but she felt different, more powerful. I don't know, Sarah said, her voice hoarse, but something just changed. I feel like it's working. Dr. Levine quickly approached her, scanning her with his equipment. After a few tense moments, he looked up, his face a mixture of surprise and disbelief. I think you're right. Your body's reacting to the artifact. There's something happening on a cellular level. It's as if your immune system has been enhanced. The realization hit them all at once. It's not just the artifact, Dr. Levine continued, his voice gaining strength. It's you. The artifact is choosing you, Captain. It's giving you the power to fight the virus. Captain Holden, still holding the artifact, felt a surge of hope. She had never felt stronger in her life. The artifact had reacted to her, but it wasn't just a gift, it was a weapon. The galaxy might have been dying, but now there was a chance to save it. She wasn't sure how it worked yet, but this power could be the key to stopping the virus. And if she could unlock more of its potential, it could change everything. We need to take this back to the fleet, Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. If the artifact can enhance my immune system, we might be able to create a cure. We have to show the rest of the galaxy. This isn't just a cure, it's the key to saving everyone. As they made their way back to the ship's bridge, the weight of the mission grew heavier. They had only just begun to understand the artifact's power, but now they knew they couldn't stop. They had to keep pushing forward. The virus might have ravaged the galaxy, but humanity was not done fighting. This was their chance to do the impossible. And with the artifact in their hands, they would stop at nothing to save the galaxy. The journey back to the fleet was a race against time. Every minute, every second, mattered. The virus was continuing its relentless march across the galaxy, wiping out entire populations without mercy. Yet now, with the artifact in their hands and a newfound hope burning inside them, Captain Sarah Holden and her team had a reason to believe that they could turn the tide. The Starfire sped through space, its engines humming steadily as the crew prepared for the most important mission of their lives. Sarah stood at the command center, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead, but her mind was focused on what lay ahead: the cure for the galaxy. They were going to need the help of the remaining scientific communities, the military, and every survivor they could reach. The artifact was their last hope, but they still had no idea how to make it work on a large scale. They had only just begun to tap into its potential. "Captain, we'll reach the fleet within the hour," Lyra called out, her voice filled with urgency. "Good," Sarah replied, her voice steady but her heart racing. She turned to Dr. Marcus Levine, who had been analyzing the artifact ever since they left Elara. "Any progress?" Dr. Levine looked up from his scanner, his brow furrowed. "The artifact's energy readings are unlike anything I've ever seen. It's as if it's alive, constantly shifting and adapting to its environment. I've tried to isolate its components, but the more I analyze it, the more it resists. So we still don't know how to control it." Jackson's voice was laced with frustration. He was a soldier, a fighter, and this uncertainty was killing him. "We're closer than we were before," Dr. Levine replied. "I think the artifact responds to human biology in some way. Something about its energy interacts with our cells. If we can find a way to harness that, we might be able to replicate the process." Sarah nodded. "We don't have time for more analysis. We need results. Now." As the Starfire closed in on the fleet, the team gathered in the ship's briefing room. The fleet, made up of several remaining warships and research vessels, was their last chance to implement a cure on a larger scale. But they needed the cooperation of the fleet's leaders, and Sarah wasn't sure they would be ready to act fast enough. Time was not on their side. The briefing room was filled with tension as Sarah, Dr. Levine, Lyra, and Jackson briefed the fleet's high command. The artifact lay on the table in front of them, still glowing faintly, casting an eerie light across the room. The senior officers were silent, their expressions a mix of skepticism and fear. They had seen the devastation the virus had caused, but they weren't convinced that the artifact was the answer. "We've seen what this virus can do," General Rylan of the fleet's command said, his voice grim. "Millions are already dead. We don't have time to play with ancient relics. We need action." "We agree," Sarah said, her voice firm. "But this artifact isn't just some relic. We've already seen that it works. It enhanced my immune system. If we can figure out how to harness that power, we could be saving millions in a matter of days." Dr. Levine stepped forward, holding a device that displayed the artifact's energy readings. "The artifact is reacting to human biology in a way we can't fully explain. But we know that it's capable of much more than just a biological enhancement. We believe it has the potential to reverse the virus, to purge it from the human body and the galaxy." General Rylan looked at the display with skepticism. "And you're certain that this will work?" "No," Dr. Levine replied. "But we have no other options. The virus is still spreading, and we're running out of time." A long silence filled the room as the officers exchanged glances. The tension was palpable. Finally, General Ryland spoke again, his voice calm but resolute. "We'll give you one chance. You have one window to prove that this artifact can do what you say it can. If it doesn't work, we'll have no choice but to initiate a galaxy-wide quarantine and prepare for the worst." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. The fate of billions rested on their shoulders, and failure was not an option. Sarah nodded, feeling the full responsibility of the mission settling onto her. "Understood, General. We'll do everything we can." The fleet's research vessels were immediately mobilized to start testing the artifact's potential. Sarah's team worked tirelessly with the fleet's scientists, feeding them data from the initial tests they had performed with the artifact. But as they tried to replicate the results, they faced obstacle after obstacle. Each test brought new complications, and the artifact continued to resist their attempts to harness its energy. Days passed, and the pressure was mounting. The fleet's resources were dwindling, and the virus continued to spread. The team could see the worry in the eyes of the soldiers and civilians who had gathered on the ships. They were running out of hope. Then, in a moment of desperation, Lyra made a breakthrough. She had been working late into the night, experimenting with the energy readings when she noticed something strange. The artifact's energy signature fluctuated in response to specific frequencies of sound. At first, she thought it was a mistake, but after more testing, she confirmed it. The artifact responded to sound waves, frequencies that seemed to unlock its power. "Captain, I think I've found something," Lyra said, her voice filled with excitement. "The artifact responds to specific sound frequencies. If we can replicate these frequencies, we might be able to trigger its full potential." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the breakthrough they had been waiting for. The team quickly moved into action, preparing to use sound waves to activate the artifact. They calibrated the ship's communication system to generate the exact frequencies needed, and the scientists worked in tandem to channel those frequencies directly to the artifact. As the sound waves began to resonate through the room, the artifact started to hum louder. Its light intensified, and the air around it seemed to vibrate with energy. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, a sudden surge of energy exploded from the artifact, filling the room with a blinding light. Sarah and the rest of the team shielded their eyes, feeling the power reverberate through their bodies. The artifact pulsed with energy, as if it were alive, reacting to the frequencies and unlocking its full potential. When the light finally faded, Dr. Levine's scanner went wild. "It's working. The virus, it's being neutralized. On a molecular level, it's disintegrating." A cheer erupted from the team, and for the first time in what felt like forever, a sense of hope spread throughout the fleet. The artifact had done it. It had started to work. The virus was being neutralized. But they weren't done yet. This was just the beginning. The artifact's power had been unlocked, but now they had to use it to save the galaxy. Sarah knew that there was still a long road ahead. They had to spread the cure to every planet, to every colony, to every person who had been touched by the virus. But for the first time, the future felt a little less bleak. As the Starfire and the rest of the fleet set course for the nearest planet, Sarah stood at the front of the ship, watching the stars streak by. They had done the impossible, but they weren't done yet. The galaxy was still on the brink of collapse, but now there was hope. The virus was going to fall, and humanity, against all odds, was going to survive. The news spread quickly across the fleet. The virus was on the retreat. The artifact had done what they had hoped, what they had feared could never be done. And now there was a tangible hope for a future. The fleet was mobilizing, sending ships to every corner of the galaxy, spreading the cure as quickly as they could. Every scientist, every soldier, every survivor was now united by one singular goal: to eradicate the virus once and for all. Captain Sarah Holden stood on the bridge of the Starfire, staring out at the stars. The once hopeless emptiness of space now felt different. It wasn't just dark voids between the stars anymore. There was a future out there, a future that was still uncertain, but no longer bleak. She had seen the devastation that the virus had caused. She had watched families lose loved ones, civilizations fall into chaos, and entire worlds burn. But now, they were fighting back. Humanity was fighting back. "Captain, we've received word from the fleet," Lyra said, breaking the silence. She was standing at the communications console, her fingers flying across the controls. "The cure is spreading. The first few planets have reported a drastic decline in infections. The medical teams are moving faster than we anticipated." Sarah's heart lifted. It wasn't just theoretical anymore. It was real. The cure was working, and the galaxy was beginning to heal. "That's good," Sarah replied, her voice steady, but the fatigue was starting to show. The weight of the past few weeks was catching up with her. They had been fighting this war for so long, but now it was clear they were winning. "We need to keep pushing. We need to make sure no one is left behind." Dr. Levine walked up to her, his face full of cautious optimism. "We've still got a lot of work ahead of us. While the cure is working on the infected, we still need to figure out how to replicate the artifact's energy on a larger scale. It's one thing to cure individuals, but we need to treat entire populations. The artifact was never meant to work like this. It was never designed for mass production." Sarah nodded. She knew that. The artifact was the key, but they couldn't rely on it forever. They had to find a way to make its power available to everyone, to use it beyond the confines of their small team. "We'll figure it out," Sarah said, determination creeping back into her voice. "We always do." The Starfire continued its journey, visiting planet after planet, spreading the cure and offering the hope of recovery. The team had become celebrities of sorts. They were hailed as heroes wherever they went, and yet, for every person they helped, there was still another world waiting for their assistance. Every new system they reached brought a fresh wave of hope, but also new challenges. The virus had spread far, and they were working against a clock that seemed to tick faster with each passing day. Despite the progress, there was still something that lingered in Sarah's mind, something she couldn't shake. The artifact had been their answer, but was it the only answer? What if the virus had evolved in ways they hadn't anticipated? What if it was capable of adapting, of finding a way around the cure they had created? That question haunted her. She knew it wasn't realistic to expect a permanent cure, especially one derived from an ancient artifact. The galaxy was vast, and the virus was relentless. They needed a long-term solution. "Captain," Jackson said as he entered the bridge. His usual serious demeanor was tinged with something else, concern. "We've just received a report from the outer colonies. The virus is starting to mutate. It's adapting to the cure." Sarah's stomach dropped. She had feared this moment would come. "What kind of mutation?" "It's not clear yet," Jackson replied, "but it's showing signs of resistance. The cures we've distributed are starting to lose effectiveness in some areas." Sarah stood frozen for a moment. The virus was adapting. That was the last thing they needed. They had barely scraped through their first obstacle. And now, there was a new one to face. This was not just a battle against time. It was a battle of survival. If the virus could evolve beyond their control, they might be back at square one. And the clock was ticking faster than ever before. "Prepare a team," Sarah ordered. "We need to head out to the outer colonies. We'll figure out what's going on and make sure they're getting the right treatment." The fleet moved out, each ship racing toward the outer rim of the galaxy. The outer colonies were the hardest hit, and now they were the most vulnerable. As they approached the first colony, the signs of the virus's mutation became clear. The buildings, once filled with life, were now abandoned. The infected were harder to spot, their symptoms masked by the new strain. And the usual treatments, the ones that had worked so well just days ago, had little to no effect. It was as if the virus had learned how to hide, to adapt. Sarah's heart sank as she stepped out onto the surface of the colony. The once vibrant community was now a ghost town. The virus had changed everything. What had once been a thriving planet was now a silent, desolate world, its people scattered and hiding from the threat. She could feel the weight of the challenge pressing down on her. She had led them this far, but now It felt like the battle was only just beginning. "Captain, we've isolated a source of the mutation," Dr. Levine said as he hurried over, his face grim. "It seems like the virus is evolving through a series of infected organisms, bacteria, fungi, even animals. They're creating a new strain, one that is resistant to the cure we developed." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with worry. "It means we're facing something we never anticipated," Dr. Levine said, his voice grim. "The virus has learned to adapt through biological vectors, and it's spreading faster than we can control." Sarah clenched her fists. This wasn't just a disease anymore. It was a war. The virus was evolving, and the galaxy was at risk of falling apart all over again. But one thing was clear: humanity was not going down without a fight. "We're not done yet," Sarah said, her voice cold with determination. "We'll figure out how to fight back. We always do." The team went to work immediately, using every resource they had to study the mutation and find a way to stop it. Days turned into weeks, and the battle raged on. The virus was evolving faster than they could counter it, but Sarah and her team never gave up. Every day, they learned more about the new strain, and each new discovery brought them closer to a solution. They knew that they could not rely on the artifact alone, but the real weapon they had, the one that would save the galaxy, was humanity itself. They had survived the impossible before, and they would do it again. The virus might have ravaged the galaxy, but humanity would never give up. The fight was far from over, but they would face it together, and together they would win. As the Starfire journeyed deeper into the galaxy, Sarah stood on the bridge once again, looking out at the stars. The battle was not over, but the hope that had been sparked by the artifact, and the courage of the people who fought beside her, would light the way forward. And in the end, that hope was what would save them all.